Good evening, JJ.
How you doing today, Brian?
I'm doing good, and thank you everyone for joining us at it's in a hell of a week, as you all know. Another episode of Mostly Peaceful Unrestricted Invasion with me, Brian O'Shea, and JJ Carrell. JJ,
Yes.
first of all, how was your weekend? I had a cool weekend, but I want to hear about yours first.
Oh, it was a good weekend. Watched some football. Hung out with my son. I coached my son's 12-year-old football team. We won a two game win streak.
That's
So
excellent.
it was good. And anytime I can spend with my son and be a part of the experience like that, I think that's a win. A win for being a dad and making memories with my son. So yeah, great weekend.
That's pretty awesome, man. Um, I didn't see my son this weekend. He's a state away. I will see him next weekend. I didn't miss the football game though because he was sick, so he missed the football game. So I didn't feel as bad.
No.
But we did have a great retreat. I can't go into the details of it or the guest name, but DailyClout does a retreat where different people get together. Um, from what we call the freedom movement, whatever that is to you, and it's a place where people could come together, share ideas, hang out,
Yeah.
shoot things, if I let them, targets, that sort of thing. And just, it's just kind of like a great time for people to get together and let off some steam. You'll be hopefully at the next one.
Yeah.
And
Can I ask you something? I find this very fascinating when people of higher intellect get together, like the people that your wife and the people at DailyClout. Did
I'm
you
very low
gain?
intellect.
Well, I know you're the low end of the spectrum there. So, did you learn? Like, I always find it interesting when you put yourself with a bunch of very smart people. You have to elevate your game, your intellectual thinking. Do you feel that way when you did this retreat?
No, actually, and I warn against doing that. Like the key thing. Let me give you a quick story. When I first met Naomi, she invited me to Oxford, and she was working on a book, and it was a cool trip. I mean, she was an extraordinary fellow over there at New College during the writing of this book, and I felt like, wow, shoot, I'm going to Oxford. I'm
Yeah.
my graduate. I have a master's from Boston University. It's a good school, but you know, we're going to Oxford. So
Right.
at first, I was thinking I got to up my game, and so I was calling myself. At the time, I was a licensed private detective, but I was calling myself like private and like intelligence professional and all that. And people didn't care or anything. They weren't impressed. And then when I said private detective and it was just myself, they were fascinated. And so they were. And so what I found was that intellectuals are, they're surrounded by intellectuals all the time. But really, what is being an intellectual? And in my opinion, it's being very well versed, very learned at what you do and what you're good at.
Yep. I
And
agree
so
with
if you,
that.
yeah, so if you can speak to that smartly and you're just yourself, that's what really I think people want. That's what they get out of these retreats, and they're actually not all stacked with academics. It's just a whole bunch of people, and sometimes I was trying to think like, oh yeah, like my arborist has been invited. He's also a champion marksman. He never military. We invited my buddy who's, you know, in a motorcycle gang. We have I forgot what she calls it, but she makes some sort of cosmic cider or something like that. And so it's just a whole big mix of people because that's really, what people want. Yeah, you'll have intellectuals show up and they start talking like this, and people fall asleep, and the way, like you can't become a fiscal hermit crab every time the Nikkei takes a dive, and so we, when that happens, we kind of, my wife is really good at mixing it up, keeping it moving, making people interact. Like she does. I'll make it quick, but she does one exercise where she says, talk to the person. She pairs them up randomly and says, you've got a minute to learn as much as you can about the person that you're talking to, and then you have to tell the whole group about it. And
That's
people
good.
do well, yeah. So we had some of our friends there, and my son's been there before. He loved it, and so it's just a nice chill time. Everyone really enjoys it. So and it gets better each time. This was very successful, so we'll have you there. And I do want to say,
like to come.
You're always invited. I do have my Punisher T-shirt on because my son says I never wear it, and I always wear it. He just never sees it, so I'm wearing it right now for him. He bought this for me in I forgot, like Florida, and he brought it back. And one day he kind of gave me that sad 12-year-old look. He's like, "Hey, why don't you ever wear my Punisher T-shirt?" Because I got another one. And Punisher is a Marvel character for those who don't know. And that's it. So, Alex wearing a Punisher T-shirt just for you, buddy.
There you go.
All right. Well, JJ, as you know, a tree took out my internet cable today. We're back online. I'm a bit behind the news. Would you like to catch us up?
Yeah, the thing what's dominating the news, right, is the war in the Middle East, Israel and Palestine, or as people try to segment it, is Hamas. But what I find fascinating watching this and knowing it's coming, but really praying it's not, but prayer's not going to stop ultimate stupidity, is the chorus now of people picking sides of how many Palestinians or people from Gaza are we allowed to come into refugee status in America. And the number that is now floating around the Democratic squad and other Democrats is 1 million. 1 million Palestinians who overwhelmingly, poll after poll, show in the high 80 percentile that they believe that they have a moral obligation and right and believe and support bombing Israel and killing Israelis and Jews. And that's what we want in our country. So just if you could just take a step back and just try to remember in the last probably 2-3 days, actually some today too, are the marches and the protests inside America. I'm not talking about, maybe 50 Palestinians or people that support Palestine. We're talking thousands in the major cities, thousands in our colleges. And we want to bring in more. And it's a bipartisan request. Nikki Haley went on a Sunday show. I think it was Jake Tapper, but I can't quote me on that. And she said, she actually sounded like someone from the squad, AOC, Tlaib, and Omar. Yes, all these people in Palestine are not terrorists, and a large segment of them just want freedom and peace like us, so we need to take them in. Well, obviously that didn't go over very well at all, and it broke the internet, and I'm sure her campaign got just destroyed. And she comes out, or her campaign comes out and says, no, actually, I'm backtracking on that. I never want to bring in all these people from Palestine, 1 million people. And she starts citing her work in the UN and blocking Syrians from coming in and on and on. But it just shows you what a uniparty we have in America, an absolute uniparty. They don't care about Americans. You want to bring in 1 million refugees? 1 million refugees is $2,200 a shot a month. We're going to fly them in. We got to get them new housing, clothes, furniture, schooling, medical, every social benefit that you can imagine. While we do that, we will have all of our Americans that are homeless, inflation destroying our economy. Our economy is going down the tank. We're in a recession. The lie that we have not been in a recession for months now is just that. It's a lie. And we're just getting to the point, Brian, that what's dominating the news is Israel, the refugees, and the other part of this Israel story that just will not go away is now, because they have highlighted how bad it can get for a nation to allow the enemy to come in. People, media, not really the mainstream media, but even though mainstream media is covering it now because they're forced to, alternative media has put a spotlight on the enormous amounts of special interest aliens that are pouring into our nation. There was a video from Ben Bearclum from Real America's Voice, and he showed just across the Rio Grande 500 men from the Middle East waiting to cross. All of those men are special interest aliens, and they're all.
Can you explain again what special interest aliens are for people who are new to the show?
So special interest aliens, we call them SIAs in my lingo in the work. SIAs are individuals that are traveling from or through terrorist nations or nations that support terrorism. So, and when you look at DHS is going to try to whitewash it and make it all clean. Not all SIAs are terrorists, blah, 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 blah. Well, how do you know that? Well, we vetted them. Well, how did you vet them? Well, you ran them through the FBI database, right? That's not a worldwide database. These people have never been in America before. So, of course, you vetted them clean, because you can't go back to Sudan or Yemen or Syria, because you bombed Syria back into the Middle Ages. Afghanistan, same thing. Iraq, same thing. So you have all these people coming here at SIAs. They have some level of terrorist connection, be it low level to very, very high level. And we're seeing them come in by the tens of thousands. It's unbelievable, Brian.
Wow. Well, and when I heard the Nikki Haley thing, as you know, I just posted on Twitter, the guy jumping out the window saying, "I'm done." Like, right. How, like, this is not stupidity, in my opinion. This is people, and I'll just say it. Like, when someone says something that stupid, especially Nikki Haley, she's not new.
No,
to DC.
She's not a dummy either.
Exactly. So when she says something like that, someone's telling her to. Mm-hmm. And people forget that. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
But what makes it even worse is she backtracked within 24 hours and said, "Oh, well, I've changed my mind." That's a big thing to change your mind on, Brian.
Well, she's the canary. Someone larger than her was testing it.
Mm-hmm.
See how the American people accept it. Yeah. And, I wanted to say, JJ, as we're talking about this, there's a time for empathy, and there's a time for, I would say, aggression and a war footing in your mind is probably a better way to put it. And during the war is not when you start taking in people from the very area that your enemy's attacking from. Can you imagine in World War II if before D-Day or during D-Day we took in 1 million Germans?
Mm-hmm.
Like, the country would have a fit.
Yeah.
And half of them would be Nazis, and people forget too about these terrorist groups like Hamas. First of all, Hamas is not a ragtag, group. That's like 200,000 plus strong, of probably the best paramilitary fighters in the area. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, the corporate media, including Fox, doesn't want people to know that. Like, for instance, President Trump had said that they're smart. Hamas is smart, and the media had a fit. Like, and they posed a question like this. I think it was Hannity. He said, "Oh no, it wasn't him," but he said, "Trump says they're smart. Do you think he understands the difference between good and evil?" Like, they really are
different stories.
Yeah. They honestly think the audience is stupid. Like, that'd be like saying, "I like tacos, but do you like trees and rocks or something?" It's just like, it's so dumb. And but it's that forced shift. And you'll notice if you get into debates with people from those circles, they try that crap on you.
Yes, they do. It's like talking about immigration. They all want to conflate. Well, you don't want legal immigration. Hold on.
Right.
We're talking about illegal immigration. If you want to talk
Yep.
about legal immigration, good. Let's go talk about it, but let's stay on legal immigration. But you made a great point. Why are we not in a war footing stance right now? Closing our ranks, closing our borders, making sure everything's okay, travel bans from countries of terrorist nations until we figure out, or the world figures out, what we're going to do. Look, you don't have to like Hamas. I hate them. I hate all the terrorists. But they believe in what they're doing. And that's a dangerous, dangerous soldier, is somebody that ideologically, in their soul, believes that they're right and they're on the right side. Look, you can make fun of those guys on paragliders with machine guns. Paragliders are not fast. They don't go zipping through like rockets.
Mm-hmm.
They're slow. It took some courage to get in a paraglider with your M4 and slowly make your way and descend in. Now I'm saying they have no courage killing people, random citizens. Right. I mean civilians. Please understand that. But to minimize their belief, their willingness to do what needs to be done, that's a fool to say, "Oh, they're stupid and they don't." Oh, really? Well, they're not really as stupid as you think.
And if I could jump in, it's a great point, because it's also exactly what any enemy would want their enemy to do. So for instance, I would want my enemy to think I'm stupid. I'd want my enemy to think I'm a ragtag bunch of, dime store terrorists, because then the people are not prepared. And it's almost, and everyone knows this who's been around the government at any time. I'm sure when you got briefings on the border, no one said, this is nothing. These guys are just little guys, they're going to throw a couple rocks at you. You don't got to really even work out. You just, you know what I mean? Of course, no one said that. When I went to places, no one ever said, okay, these guys are fighting that we just sent a whole special forces group to go kill. They're just a bunch of druggies, and, we'll take them out, no problem. You don't even need to prepare for them. Of course not. No. So when they do that, it almost seems like it's by design.
Yes.
And that's when I say, okay, find those media bites, and we, swim upstream to who is commanding them. And I guarantee, and I'll just say this, no research at all, I guarantee you will find the originating source, Xinhua Newsnet. Guarantee it. And Xinhua Newsnet is the major newsnet for the People's Republic of China. It is also publicly the Ministry of Propaganda for the People's Republic of China. And I just want to reiterate that Reuters, AP, and NBC, they all signed memorandums of cooperation with Xinhua years ago, and they're still going. So again, we can get into China another time, but probably later on. But remember, when you see, and I'll say one more, actually, I'll save this one, but I got one more comment about the media that I noticed right away. And it's the same pattern from 2020 when this pandemic began, that you notice the media patterns, and then you really know to be vigilant and look through your own anger. And I do want to say this really quickly, JJ, watching my clock that we agreed to. We have family there. We have colleagues there. Probably a lot of people in America do. And it's hard. I watched not the videos on the news, but I have people that I've worked with privately who are based in Lebanon and in the security industry, and sending me real videos. And why do I watch them? I watch them to remind, because I have to stay on the edge. And the reason why is because I'm not going overseas anytime soon, but they're coming here. If they're not,
they're already here, Brian. They're already here.
Then you would know. And we have to be ready. I mean, it was a tough night last night, because I've seen a lot of really bad stuff, and I got to say, this is possibly the worst I've seen, and I've only seen the tip of the iceberg. And but when you feel that flood of anger, and my friends aren't sending it to propagandize me, they're sending it because I asked. Yeah. and and they want me to look at it so I can analyze it, break it down, try to get some intel to help them out, keep their own clients safe. But when you see it, it's a real struggle to get you to suppress that anger. And I don't know the people in the videos, but I'm a human being. And when you see a mother being dragged out with her 2 little babies, I mean, who doesn't relate to that? And if you don't relate to that, you need to be on the other side with those mongrel dogs that are Hamas. And so I just want to say that, so for those people, good friend of ours that I've worked with in the past here, DailyClout, and just we're thinking about you, and I do have an idea of what you're up against, and until these feral dogs are taken out, and I'm not saying like Fox News wise where they want to dedicate all these, like, start a whole nother war. No, I'm just saying eliminate the enemy. We don't need a world war to do that, and Israel knows how to do that. So what I'm saying is, we're angry. We're angry too. Human beings are angry. This is not a political thing. And yes, it's very obvious that someone wants us to feel emotional. They want America to overreact and find itself in another war. Looks like we're heading that way. That's not something I support, but certainly I support those people of Israel, those innocent people who have been just maimed and butchered. And I am totally against any group, even here in the United States, even a gang in the inner city. If you're going to act that way, you need to go down the same way you took others down, and it needs to be painful. And then that's all I'll say about that.
Yeah, but think of how the Michael Savage, the great radio host that now does podcasting, he coined the phrase "liberalism is a mental disorder," and I believe that.
Yeah.
And Israel's a great example. They have a mental disorder that they won't take care or restrict people from coming in. The only difference between Israel and America is our enemy is not right on our border. That's it. Because I will guarantee you that if Hamas and Palestine and Gaza and Iran, Syria, Yemen were on our southern border and our northern border, we would allow those people in. We'd allow them to cross in and out daily. And they would blow up stuff, and we would still say, don't be a bigot, don't be a racist. I know they would. I absolutely 100% know they would. And I'm angry because I'm just tired of it all. I'm tired of, what I tell my wife sometimes? I feel as if I'm in this really bad Broadway play. And I've been cast as the guy that's got to walk around with all the other dummies in the world and act like everything's okay. And I trust you, government, and the media, of course, whatever you say, please tell me how to think and what to do and how to feel, because I'm not as smart as you, right? I've just had it. And I think more Americans than not, we've all just freaking had it, man. Can we just talk the truth? Can we just speak the truth? Men can't have babies. Men don't need tampons in the public bathrooms. A woman can't be a man just because she chops off her breast. Pedophiles are pedophiles.
Yep.
Terrorists are terrorists.
Yes.
Illegal aliens are illegal aliens. I mean, can we talk like normal adults that live in reality? But think of how far our culture has gone, Brian, that for months and for years, until several people broke away, we were told, you are a racist and you're a bigot if you don't believe men can have babies. What? What are you talking? See, that's the world that we look. Historians are going to write volumes about this time in history. And you know what they're going to write more about? They're going to write volumes about the insanity of the people that we allowed to infect our culture and tell us. But you know what they're going to write more volumes of? They're going to write volumes and volumes about people in America, how they stood there silently and abdicated their intellect and allowed themselves to be forced to speak utter nonsense, and to shake our head. Oh, yeah. Oh, you have 173 genders and you're a dog? Yes, you are. That's the world. But, you and I, Brian and I talked a little bit today before we got on. And I was just telling him, I took my son to a skate park. He's a big X Game kid. And he's out there grinding, working his trade, his craft, just like I would if I was playing football at his age. And I was telling Brian how angry I was today because I'm so tired of having these discussions with my son, because he's getting barraged with all of the transgender, all of the stuff that goes against my beliefs, my Christian beliefs. And my father never had to discuss with me that men can't have babies. Of course they can't have babies. But I'm having these conversations with my son. It's driving me crazy, Brian.
Well, and are they not to go down too far down this, but are they pushing that at his school?
No, it's more because we go.
The
I
woke
said
agenda
my
in
son.
general.
Yeah, my son goes to a local Catholic school because I want my faith taught to him and security, right? So no, they don't teach that, but it's culturally, movies. I mean, we can sit down and have a family movie, and I have very slim pickings of what I can rent. And then we'll rent something. We're thinking, okay, it's okay. And then something comes in that doesn't even need to be there. And I'm just like, normal Americans or normal adults have a hard time even processing, and then have an even harder time articulating this insanity that's in our culture. How the hell does my son understand this at 12 years old? Right?
Yeah.
I just want to get back to the baseline fundamentals of life. Look, if you're gay or you're a man and you dress like a woman, just like I tell my son, we don't believe that. However, we will never, ever make fun of people, bully them, or degrade them. We're going to show them respect, and we're going to show them kindness. But we expect that kindness back at us. Don't tell me I have to believe. You're telling me that I got to take my holy Bible and I have to throw it away so you feel good? No, not doing it. Not doing it.
Well, exactly. And you bring up a good point, and that's that you cannot give what did I hear? I believe it was in God, I was just reading this, but basically someone said you can't give socialists or Marxists an inch.
No.
An inch. You can, and that's what's happened with conservatives and even like center left, like and center right, where it was kind of silly. Like all these things were silly 5 years ago. I mean, they were serious to them, and I took these things very seriously if people brought them to me. Some clients had different lifestyles, and that's fine. But like, as far as like, had someone said 5 years ago, "Hey, I'm a cat, and you need to call me Fluffles because that's my new name," I'd say, okay, I'm going to also call Adult Protective Services, and we're going to get you the help you need and your little pink pajamas, maybe some rainbow sherbet. But the thing is, it's like these things are all distractions. They're all meant to be divisive. There's some money that's made along the way, so people will say, well, like, oh, Pfizer's involved and all that, so they're pushing it. No, they're pushing it now. But all of these little things are social subversion. So while everyone's focused on the gender rights and all these things, which are, when it comes to the success and prosperity of a nation, don't matter. And I'll just say it, they don't matter. Okay.
But do you think it matters though in the big picture though, Brian? If it gets inside your military, it makes
and that's
governmental decisions.
So what happens is if you have the Russian defector Yuri, I can never pronounce his name, but I'll put it up on the screen. Mendenov or something, but he was talking about these steps to subversion, and I'll make sure I put that up on the screen before this thing's over. And it'll haunt you if you read it, because he was a Russian defector, and he talks about how the Soviet Union, and I'm not saying this is the Soviet Union, Soviet Union taught the Chinese a lot. The Chinese taught the Soviet Union a lot. They've been allies for a long time, long before Ukraine. But that one of those steps is, and he kind of jokes on the 60 Minutes interview, which is a great interview, and I think it was in 1984. But he basically says, "Yeah, we'll pick any social topic in the target country, and blow the dust off it and flare it up, whether this rights, those rights, those type of things." So if you notice the way these things flare up, almost inorganically, to the levels they do, because it's very inorganic. It's not like, real important issues like women's suffrage, for instance, very important. Freeing the slaves, of course, super important. Real things that affected real people, and as a result have made this country better. That these things have come and we've accepted, and that's our country. But when you're talking about jailing people for not using some made up pronoun, that's fake. That is crazy stuff. And that people don't see it. I think I know why. And that's because, if you see what's being pushed. So I'm going to zoom out here. I'm going to get my buddy Josh Stiles was on right now. He'd really love me for this, but because I rarely do this. But if you really, think about if you want to attack this country and you're China, because whether people agree with me or not, it's China. Ultimately, it's China. There's opportunists along the way, but it's China. And so if I wanted to attack this country, they've already said they want to be in charge of the whole world by 2049. It's called the China Dream. Anyone could look it up. And they do have their doctrine, unrestricted warfare, which you could see playing out right now. And again, I'll put up the link. Everyone should read up on it. But if I wanted to take over this country or take over any country, their timeline is a lot longer than the typical Western timeline. We see war as, we got spoiled by Desert Storm. And, then we had longer things like Afghanistan, which lasted forever. But we got spoiled by this expectation of a quick victory. And for, Chinese strategists, historians, and everything, the ultimate victory is the one where you don't fire a shot. And so if my goal is 2049, I want to take out this country. What do you do first to take out the enemy? You don't just run in there with your infantry. No, you drop artillery on them. You weaken them from within. Artillery doesn't have to be shells. Artillery can be social artillery, where you get them fighting with each other. You get them worried about their neighbors being white supremacists and white nationalists. You spread rumors, real or fake, actually, that the water supply is poisoned, which it might be. Now we don't know. So you take that energy that we all have, that mental energy, and you send it in 1,000 different directions. And if anyone that's been on Twitter more than 2 hours trying to catch up with everything, you can't even function after 2 hours. You got to take a walk outside, do some push-ups or something. But you hit them with all of that. You hit them things like gender, and you get everyone focused in all these different directions. But what people don't focus on are things like monetary policy. They don't focus on, for instance, what's going on with public health, what's going on with One Health, these things that actually will take away all of their freedoms, because they're so focused on these emotionally charged subjects. And professional boxers, professional fighters, I bet they're doing okay resisting that type of subversion, that type of propaganda, because what is a weigh-in? I mean, a weigh-in when the two boxers sit there and glare at each other, they're trying to get each other emotional so they can't think. Well, this is happening to our whole country, and people are falling for it hook, line, and sinker. Why do you, when you go out and you meet some of these people in person, it's not as bad. Plus, there's always that fear they'll get their ass kicked. But,
that's the biggest thing.
They're not going to smack it. They're not going to talk smack like they do. But still, because there's other things happening, there's body language, there's a person in front of you. It's different. Whereas when it's on the screen, it's a video game. It's not real. It's just like Fahrenheit 451, where like everything is a faraway thing. Everything is a war that's happening. There's always a war happening in that book, and I highly recommend it. They even mention 2022. and a bombing, like, that was like the big bombing campaign. But the thing is, they're so removed from it because people are stuck on their screens, even in that book, which was written decades ago. So when I see things like getting internet to everyone, like, when did it become like necessary for people's lives to have the internet? Even today, like, I go a day without the internet, it's usually the best day of the week. But all of this money going to broadband, the fact that Zoom was on the scene immediately in 2020, and they just went public in 2019. The fact that everything's on the screen. We even had that idiot Bill Gates saying, "Oh, you don't need vacations anymore. You can put on these goggles and go look at the digitized giraffes with my face on them or something." But the point is, everything seems geared towards getting this screen in front of you, and as long as the screen is in front of you, you're kind of becoming a cyborg, because if you can't function without these machines, that's exactly what you are. And the more you need these, the less you can relate to human beings, and the easier it is to dehumanize them and cheer on, groups like Hamas or any other Khmer Rouge. I mean, like, throughout history, because people always find a way to get dehumanized, or they get dehumanized. And once that happens, those people become dangerous. And the only way to shock them into reality is usually when those same groups stick a gun in their face and they're waving their flag and they're like, "Look, I support you." They're like, boom, they don't care. And that's the thing. These are murderers and animals, but it's a video game until it's kicking down your door.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, that was a rant.
No, you're right. And it's the ignorance, right? They browbeat you with lies. I mean, you actually have people in these Palestinian, Gaza, Hamas rallies throughout America. You actually have the LGBTQ, XYZ, and A people with signs: trans for Palestine, gays and lesbians for Palestine. And I'm like, dear God, you'd be the first people they butcher when they come over here to America. Or go take that sign and sit on the street corner in Gaza. See how long you last. It's beyond parody.
But don't you see, like, when I see those things, because I hate to be the guy that says I have a lot of gay friends, but I do, and it's like, I lived in New York City. Of course I do. But the thing is, those don't represent everyone who's gay or lesbian. Those, to me, when I see them, yes, those people have those signs. Yes, they feel that way, or yes, they're paid to do that, because we've seen in the past paid protests. But those seem like divisive tactics to me. Those seem like things to keep the flames going in this own country, because damn well, when anyone, hearing it, I'm upset, you're upset, and we certainly shouldn't accept it. It's, but it's manipulation, because something bigger is coming. And, you have to keep the country at each other's throats, because then it's easier, because this country is a terrifying country to invade, and everyone knows it, and we know why. And so, when I see that, that's a divisive thing, and it's idiotic. I agree with you.
But you look at one of the viewers wrote in our chat.
I see.
Masood Vibes: Israel is ethnically cleansing Palestine, and behind COVID, it was Israel. Stop lying.
Israel.
I mean, Israel got attacked. Did Israel go in and mask themselves in Hamas flags and garb and military and go and kill and rape and pillage their own people? I mean, so what prompt? I mean, you can't even have a discussion with someone like that.
You can't. And this is, you see that, it's, I'll respect anyone's comment and I'm glad you brought it up, by addressing it. But when I see something like this, this person may actually believe that, may actually feel that way. First of all, I say, comments without links are just social graffiti. But at the same time, this is not what we're talking about. Like, if someone breaks into my home and they're going to murder my family, and I'm about to shoot them, and then someone else in my house says, "Wait a minute, remember you killed that guy's dog?" It doesn't matter, because see, this is the difference between strategic thinking and tactical thinking. Right now, there are horrible people that did things to innocent people. That's a fact. You know, we can deal with why they did it later, but right now they've got to go. Because they are a threat, and they're a continued threat to those people. I'm not saying the United States needs to do it, but what I'm saying is, if that happens here, and people start protesting and saying, "Oh, wait, don't kill those," can you imagine you could do a parody of Red Dawn, and as the parachutes are coming in, you'd have freaking protesters saying, "Don't maim the parachuters." It's like, what, no.
But that's not far
so
from reality, though, Brian.
No, it's not. And the thing is, when I see something like this, and behind COVID, it was Israel, like, this is nonsense.
I know,
Sorry,
but it just points to me the divide in America.
Not
And
Masood
one other
vibes,
thing that
the
needs to
vibe.
be I'm sorry?
Oh, not Masood vibes, the vibe.
The vibe. I just think, one of the problems I believe that's happened in the world, but specifically in the United States, is we have pushed out the belief that there is good and there's evil. We have taken those titles and pushed them aside, and now we have moral relativism, where whatever your truth is the truth. No, that's not what we believe in America. With Judeo-Christian values, the Ten Commandments.
Well, first of all, there's only, by the definition of the word, there's only one truth, and that's the truth.
Yeah.
You can't have your truth and my truth. That's an opinion.
But you and I know that because of the worlds that we come from, that we know without a shadow of a doubt that there is good and there is evil. And there are people, like you talk about, like, we're trying to rationalize, right? This is what I always, when people talk to me about the people that I used to arrest and what they're like, and I tell people, listen, the problem that you're having is you're trying to put a rational explanation or description on a person that is irrational, that everything their life is completely the opposite of normal, good, decent, civil. And you're trying to make them, mold them, and push them into our civil society when they're straight up savages and they don't care. Like, what normal, like, doesn't matter how much hate and rage you have, Brian. If you and I, let's say Russia came in and blew up our cities, and you and I got drafted and we flew over to Belgrade and we're going to war, you and I would not walk into houses and be plinking women and children. We just wouldn't.
Of course not.
We just wouldn't, because we would not have that inside of us to do that. Even though I'll match your violence with my violence every day, and I'm going to win. But I'm not going to turn and barrel my gun and kill a little kid.
No, well, another thing.
But my point is, we're trying to negate evil and say that it doesn't exist. It does exist, Brian.
It does. You're right. And you know what a lot of people overlook when they see, Hamas or, Hezbollah, Abu Sabaya in the Philippines, or, you know what they always overlook? These are actually criminals. Like, these are psychopaths. I've seen their hard drives. I've seen their videos. I used to have to go through them. And these are, and there's a ton of drug use. That's a lot of people don't realize too. And you said earlier they really believe it. Not all of them do. A lot of them are mercenaries who are drug addicts. I'm not saying they're bad at what they do. I think they are good at what they do. But since the dawn of the assassin in the Arabic world, I mean, do you know where the word assassin comes from? It comes from the word hashish. Or hash, I forgot. My Arabic's a little rusty, but hashasha, something like that. But that's where assassin comes from. They dope these guys up with hashish. to make them go kill people. When I was all throughout Southeast Asia, the gangs, because that's what I call them, that we dealt with, they were always on something. Oh my God, when they're in captivity, watching them come down without any, methadone or anything like that, it's quite a show. I have no sympathy for them. It's quite an enjoyable show because we want to just set a bus on fire full of kids, so let him suffer. But the point is, like, people forget that too, and you're right. And what you're talking about when people are trying to fit them in the intel world, that's one of the first things you learn is do not mirror image. The person you're looking at is not you.
Right.
They don't have your same thoughts. And I'll leave it on this. That's a childish way to look at the world, to think that they think like you. The last time I heard that was my son got stung by a bee. He was like 7. And it hits him. We hear the buzz, and it hits and nails him, and hits him in the hand, and then it flies up and gets him in the cheek, like the same damn thing. And I went and I grabbed it, and and then I hit it with some Flex Seal. No, they're not a sponsor, but great for bees. Flex Seal, take down anything. But you know what he said? It was really sweet, but it's just he's naive because he's 7. He said, why did that bee do that? I wasn't doing anything to him. Because he's a bee.
Because it's a bee. Yep.
That's what they do.
That's what they're bred to do.
Drug addicts and terrorists do drugs and do terror. That's what they do. They can't help. They can't stop. I have a family member who's a career criminal, not like a major one, but just like stupid stuff like mayhem and stuff, like his whole life. And he calls me one day, and he's like in his 50s, and he says, "Hey, dude," and he's like, "Do you know how to, open up a computer? Because I lost my password, and I want to get all my data off it." And I said, "So you stole someone's computer, and you want to make it your own?" And he's like, "Why'd you got to say that, bro?" And I'm like, "Because I know you. Because you do this like every 6 months. You can't help it. You don't know any other way to live."
Yeah,
and that's the thing. So you're right, JJ. Go ahead.
No, it's true. But then you circle back and you see AOC and the squad, like they're intellectual simpletons, right? I get that. But you get a person that was our UN ambassador, Nikki Haley, start talking about those are good people and we could bring in 1 million of them. The king of Jordan, Abdullah, came out and said, "We will not take not one refugee." And I'm thinking, here is somebody that lives next door to them, Egypt, the same thing. And they're saying, "Go pound sand. I'm not taking one of them because I'm not having mayhem in my country." And the morons, and I'm being kind when I call them morons, those morons in our politicians, they want to bring in 1 million. Are you out of your effing mind?
And it's ignorant of history too. This refugee crisis is as much it's the fault of everyone over there, but everyone seems to want it to last. I mean, look, the Palestinian refugees have been refugees because people won't let them in. Other Arab nations, because that keeps. There's a million reasons, a million theories for that. Is it that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia doesn't want the rest of the Middle East to unify, thus challenging their hegemony in the area? I don't know. Or is it that, hey, we want an excuse to constantly have conflicts with Israel so we all get funded? Because they all get funded. If we fund Israel, Syria gets funded by Russia. If we fund this country, then, this country gets funded by China. Everyone makes money. That's the thing, as long as you have a conflict. And so when people like, oh, Israel's ethnically cleansing Palestine. First of all, Palestine, I'm sorry, there's show it to be on a map. But the thing is, it's that way for a reason. 1 million, any one of those countries could have leaned on the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, who's nothing happens in the Middle East unless it's blessed by the KSA. So
right,
that's a fact. And so the thing is, they've kept this crisis going as much as maybe the Israelis have, and I won't get into those politics. But the point is, people need the conflict because the conflict is profitable, plain and simple.
Well, it's
And it's
profitable here in America to bring in 1 million refugees. Can you imagine the NGOs and the money that they'd make? Catholic charities, Lutheran charities, Jewish family services,
well, not only
on
that.
and
Think
on.
of the power. Think of the. You defund the local police. You don't defund the federal police because all those defund the police things. Let's just shift right over to that. You defund. You never saw a thing saying defund the FBI until it came from the conservative side late in the game. But during the whole BLM thing, it was always defund the police. Never defund the FBI. Never defund the federal police. Always the local police. Uvalde happened. They blamed the local police. You know, I'm not here to judge anyone's police skills. I'm not a cop. But the thing is, there's always been calls for defunding the police, but they're always aimed at state on down, never federal. So you also don't prosecute criminals. You're creating a firestorm in this country of crime.
Mhm.
And then you know what's going to happen? You expand the FBI. Oh, wait, that's right. They're already doing that along with the IRS to fund
Yep.
all of that. So you create the solution and the problem at the same time. But what's going to happen is when you lose police at the local and state levels, you're chipping away at state sovereignty. Because if you
We
want to
don't
take
have
over this
state
country, it's a
sovereignty.
hell of a lot easier.
Yeah. Tell me.
Yeah, because and if you're Xi Jinping and you want to take, go ahead.
No, you're right. You're right. Go ahead.
Oh, and I was going to end with, if you let's say I'm right, and I hope I'm wrong. I don't think I am, but you're Xi Jinping, or you're anyone that wants to take over the United States. Our states have more sovereign authority than almost any other states or provinces within a country in the world and within throughout history. So when you want to conquer the United States, it's like conquering 50 little countries. Well, no,
Yep.
I'm sorry. It's like conquering 50 little countries minus all of the blue states, because they're just going to lay down if they have not already. And I'm not talking about the people, I'm talking about the leadership.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, so if you've seen all of this, it's all about reducing state sovereignty, because when you reduce state sovereignty, you only have one head to topple. Now, in this case, my opinion, that head's been toppled, but you still have, Governor DeSantis, who, I'll reserve my opinions on his candidacy for, the Republican ticket. So I don't want to get into that debate, but good governor. He fought for his state. Christine, great governor. Those kind of governors are nightmares to totalitarian regimes, because they just said no. We're not going to do that. They're like, well, I'm the president. I don't give a shit who you are. We're not going to do that. And I went through South Dakota and Florida and all those. We crossed the country like 4 or 5 times during the pandemic, and it was like there was no pandemic in those states. The media even lied about the pandemic in those states to make it look worse because they weren't wearing masks. But the point is, this all chips away at state sovereignty. And, I've gone so far afield on this. Just grab the conch, JJ, and take it back.
I agree. No, I agree completely. I think it's the greatest fear of our founding fathers was a centralized government. That's why they fought so hard for state rights. But all of our states' rights, all of our states have abdicated their state rights to the federal government. Think about it. You got the Department of Education from Washington, D.C. telling you how you're going to run your schools tied to federal dollars.
Yeah. Well, think about a public health emergency.
Yeah. Think of that.
What happened? All of a sudden, CDC is saying, "Oh no, we're just advising." Yeah, my ass, you're advising. Then why did HHS give so much authority to school nurses? And that's what people have to watch out for. Yeah.
Yeah. But we've lost it. Yeah.
Well, and tell me about. Let's shift over to the border, because what's going on lately, and now that we're on this subject, does this make sense? Like, they're letting everyone in, man. They're letting everyone in. There seems to be no border. And
there is no border. And the way the media lies, DHS lies, and they say that they call them pathways. They've opened up pathways. But what you've done is you've taken DHS policy like parole or asylum, and you've bastardized it, and then you widen it to where something that was extremely narrow, you've widened and now everyone goes through. There's now reports, because there's almost media silence on this, when we had that giant spike about a week ago where we jumped to 11,000 a day, right on 12,000. There's reports now that we're closer to 14,000 a day being arrested. Think of what I just said, 14,000 people a day. And what they're finding out now, because now there's a white hot spotlight on this issue, is there are a lot of special interest aliens / terrorists that are being arrested. Not the ones that are absconding with the millions of people in the open borders. I'm talking the ones that just walk across the border and give up. They're finding, I think it was last week, 3 days ago, 14 Syrian nationals. 14. Ben Bergquam from Real America's Voice actually went into a tent. Benny Johnson from he's a social media, right?
Yep,
I like him a lot. He posted a video from Ben Bergquam, a tent with 50 Syrian nationals. 50. They had 19 Iranians caught Sunday, I think it was. I mean, I can go on and on and on. Iranians.
Wow.
Syrians, Iranians, people from Yemen, Sudan. Every terrorist nation or hotbed, they're already here, Ryan. It's not like there's this giant flood of people came into America and we stopped it. And then we turned our back, we kept the borders completely secured, military on the border, and we turned all law enforcement and said, okay, now we're going to go out and get everybody and get them out. We're not doing that. We're letting everybody come in. We don't do anything to stop it. And then we don't look back and go, look at everybody in our country that shouldn't be here. Let's go get them. No, what do? We open those avenues even wider and bring in more people. Look, people were losing their mind.
So if I got to jump in here,
okay.
Why would anyone do that? I mean, look throughout history, and you know the answer. Why would that little hobgoblin looking dude in the 300 lead the Persians across? Why would he do that? Because he thinks they're good people. Why would someone open the gates of Troy? Because they're captured. It's a captured government. They've been promised a seat at the table.
Yep.
Okay.
I believe that. I believe, yeah. You asked me what's the big picture? My absolute solid belief is the people that are in charge, Mayorkas and his cadre of people that hate America, and they hate America. I know it's hard for people to understand this, but those people hate America. They believe that we're colonializers, that we're slavers, that everything, the greatness and success that America has obtained is fraudulent and based on a foundation of lies, deceit, and corruption. And their way is to give it back to the world, to fundamentally transform America. And if you don't
fundamental. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm just saying that. Yep. How do you fundamentally transform America? You're not going to change the thinking of millions of people. Let's just use this. The 74 million, 80 million people that voted for Trump. You're not going to change their mind that America is bad and that it's all ill-gotten gains and we need to transform America. It's never going to happen. You'll never accomplish that. But you can accomplish it when you flip the script and have more non-citizens in your country than citizens. We already have over 50 million people that are foreign nationals. You have over 30 to 40 million illegal aliens in our country. So don't tell me that it can't happen.
Well,
it only can happen. It's happening.
I agree with you. And I think here's what I think is happening. So we should just turn on the camera every time we talk, because this is our conversation every day. And I love it. But it's important that we know it so we know what we're fighting. You can change the country, and you typically wouldn't need to flood it. I'll get to that in a second. But when you think about warfare, we think of warfare in years, right? 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, 10 years. The Chinese think of time. I'm sorry. When we think of time, we think of it in 4 years, 2 years. Political cycle. The Chinese think of it in terms of dynasties. And so when you look at, so let's say the China Dream 2049, right? And that's China's in charge of pretty much the world. Okay, 2030 is when they're in charge of the supply chain. That's called Made in China 2030. But when you look at that 20-year span, if you look up the average, there's a lot of debate on what a generation is. It's roughly 20 to 25 years. Okay. So look what's happening. You tear down statues, you tear down history, you try the 1619 project to, basically muddy the waters of history. You basically flood the zone with so much information about history, so much that is fake, so much that is real, but you really have to dig deep and you got to do the work. And it takes a lot of mental energy to do the work. However, you only have so much mental energy a day, per day. So, and I learned this because I wasn't getting anything done. And I'm like, oh, so I looked at that little phone thing, that little graph, and I like, oh yeah, there's a big bar for video games, a slightly smaller bar for Twitter, and no bar for just Kindle. And so I'm like, okay, but by the end of the day, you're spent. And so you take away the history. You want to ask how to fundamentally change a country, and you're right. You take away the history, you take away the language, you take away the borders, you take away the names of the military bases, historic military bases, and all of these things have happened. Okay. You misspell Plymouth. My wife caught that. We went down to Plymouth Rock. They misspelled Plymouth in my son's textbooks. So basically you muddle the history, and if you take the history away and you take away patriotism, and don't forget, they said, all these patriotic terms were signs of white extremists or some nonsense. So you take away patriotism, you take away the American flag. We had a congresswoman say, oh my God, there are American flags everywhere. And I was so terrified. That happened in 2021.
I remember that.
And for the recording, we'll make sure all these things are inserted. So you take away all of that. And when these kids who are our son's ages and younger, the goal is when these kids grow up, they won't know what America is because the American flag is covered with some rainbow flag with some other new patterns constantly changing. And, they won't know what it is. And then they'll lose a sense of definition. And then you take away the sense of being a human. You take away the sense of gender. You take away that gender is even important. You take away the nuclear family as being important. You take it all away. When people have no definition and no sense of loyalty to a sovereign nation, what are they fighting for? They're not going to fight for anything, and you walk right in. So, the point I'm making is it's the same freaking play that Marxist revolutions have done throughout history. They did this in the Great Leap Forward, which I like to call the Great Leap Backwards, where they tore down statues. During the Cultural Revolution in China, they tore down statues. They wore black masks and hammers and sickles. Sound like Antifa.
It's everything we're witnessing today, Brian.
It's this, people. I used to kind of think it was kind of kitschy and neat that history repeats itself because we're fortunate that we've lived in a golden age as a country. But history does repeat itself, and
over and
to
over
any
and over
history.
again.
Yeah, and so I'll wrap this up so you could get a word in. Are you Irish, by the way?
Yeah, I got some of that in me, but I'm kind of a mix of everything.
I was gonna say because I feel like I'm talking at my family table sometimes because we're just like, boom. But
you got to talk louder, right, in order to get heard. I have 4 sisters, a brother, mom and dad, and our dinner table, you had to be loud. You had to speak fast, or you would just get pushed to the side.
Oh yeah, 13 words or less. I knew that rule. But anyways, I'll wrap this up. But what I'm saying is, so you attack Marxist revolutions always attack the youth. And they attack the youth for a reason, because they know, especially Americans, that we think we're fighting wars. We're fighting battles. We're battle oriented. Okay. We're like, oh, we won this war against, gender, whatever. Well, that's a battle, and oh, we won this thing to get the rights of something else. Well, that's a battle. Yeah. Okay. The war is something that never stops. And what we as Americans don't realize, because we have 2 giant oceans between us and 2, for the most part, pretty innocuous North and South neighbors militarily, we forget that, peace is like a beach ball that you have to hold under the water, and you can't walk away from it. Because if like war is that beach ball and peace is you holding that beach ball underneath, and you walk away from it, it pops up and the world goes crazy. We've done that recently. And so, sorry, my wife held up a sweet potato and said, you got to eat this. I'm not going to eat that till later. But, but the thing is, like, you have to constantly apply pressure. And I think here in the West, we've forgotten that. And I think part of that is just good fortune, but also, a big part of that is, you see it with the media when they're saying like Hamas is stupid. How could Trump call them smart? They're not stupid. They've been around for a long time. They're one of the toughest fighting for like paramilitary forces in the world. That'd be like saying the IRA is stupid. That'd be like saying the PLA is stupid. That'd be like saying, Trump is stupid. They're not. Because
just look what Hamas did. Hamas went and totally went across the Iron Dome. And all that totally billions of dollars and just dominated it.
And they walked right in. And, it was, I mean, that kind of strategy is like, that's, when people, and I got to be careful here because I'm very careful about what normally I'm not, but when it comes to this, I don't want people to think that, being callous in any way, because I can't, just talking about it, like I think about, what I've seen, but it's kind of like saying Hitler was a very good speech maker without liking Hitler. You know what I mean? So it's like when you see the strategy, what was really,
he was a great speaker.
He was, yeah, and I can
incredible.
Separate. And like I could separate the the politics and look, I'd warn the audience, when people tell you how to think, those are your enemy. Don't think of war as like someone firing a bullet at you. When people tell you how to think, they're attacking your mind, and without a mind, your body is useless. Hashtag Brian O'Shea, if you quote that.
But you made you touched on that, and I see it in our chat about how the youth is impressionable. And it was interesting you bring that up, because I was driving from the skate park to this podcast, and my son and I had a conversation about this, and we were talking about why the left won't attack me so much as they will attack my son, meaning all of their propaganda goes to him and to his age group. It's because they can change your mind, son. They can make you question everything and then make sense in some irrational way to a young, impressionable mind. They're not going to change people like me or your Uncle Clay or Brian. They're not going to change. We're solidified in our beliefs. Now we have change of thought because as we get more information, and that's why I tell my son this, and we have these discussions. He's 12 years old. But
our sons have to meet, by the way. They have to meet.
Okay, and they will. But my
son is so jealous of your son because your son does exports, and his mom won't let him do exports. And I'm kind of like, I'm agreeing with her because it's like, I don't want him to get hurt, but at the same time, I have him firing an AR-15. It's like,
What's the
'Cause I
better?
don't want
What's
him
the
to
more
get hurt.
probability of getting hurt? I mean, my son plays football, and they're like, "Oh, he could get hurt." I go, "Are you insane?
My son
Have you
plays football.
seen what these X game kids do?"
It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy.
I would look if I dropped in a bowl.
Well,
We call it a bowl.
JJ, tell the story you told earlier. You got to, guys, and audience. By the way, JJ, if sorry to cut you off, just want to address our audience. Sin O is back. Thank you, Sin O. Return audience member. We love you. Thank you for doing that. Hello. She said hello at Brian at JJ. That's at Brian O'Shea SPI and at JJ Carrell 14. I also want to say Alyssa ALYS 57. Really, she's from Canada. That's great. I'm in Canada. I wish we had men like, oh, thank you. I wish we had men like you to explain what is happening to our neck of the woods. Shame on Trudeau is all I have to say. And you are welcome. Enjoy your podcast. And by the way, I got to say, it is it Revolver News up there doing?
Yep.
Is it
Revolver? It is Revolver News. Yep.
And Ellis, if I got that wrong, they're doing a great job, and and I feel I want to apologize as an American that our media is assisting your media in lying to you, and you know that. So you guys are doing a great, and I love Canada. Like I was so surprised when Canada, and our country, we're no better at this point, locked down people and started acting totally Marxist.
Rebel News. Yep, it is Rebel News.
Rebel News. Thank you. Yeah, Rebel News are fantastic. Fan-freaking-tastic. And I wish they'd follow me back, but that's okay. That's another story. Alyssa, I would also say follow if Daily Pundit. You definitely follow Daily Pundit and DailyClout, as well, who is hosting this podcast. And JJ Carroll's Substack. And JJ, can you throw into the comments? Can you throw your Substack up there?
Let me see. Good question.
So, and by the way, we're kind of a couple thuggish kind of dads who don't really know tech that well. So, but
it's not letting me.
All right, but anyways, Alyssa, thank you so much. And she says we're tough, louder than us, etc. No, I mean, look, I used to when I was with First Special Forces. And I was just so we're clear, because I don't want stolen valor to come after me. Was not a Green Beret. I was part of the military intelligence detachment who sent teams forward, SOT A and SOT B teams, which are signals intelligence tactical units, to provide a blanket of protection for our teams. So yes, we did pretty dangerous stuff, but we didn't get the glory, and we had a heavier rucksack. But the point is, Alyssa, I want you to know there's some really tough people in Canada. That is a hardy land. That's a great people. And I have Canadian jump wings. We used to work with Canadian Special Forces at First Special Forces in Washington State all the time. I have a really good friend up there who invited me up to speak at a counter, industrial espionage conference. And I've always had the highest respect. What's happened to Canada is a tragedy, and I'm never going to tell another country to fight back because I got to fight for my own country. But tell you what, you guys fight back, we'll fight back. We'll meet in the middle, and we'll have a beer right there at Niagara Falls. And I'm ready to rock. And JJ is too. So, and JJ's in the middle of the country, so he's got a longer way to go. So, but yeah, keep fighting. And you guys, there's nothing wrong with Canadians. There's only something wrong with the Canadian government right now, just like there's nothing wrong with Americans. And look, even the Americans that I don't agree with, who are stupid and silly and think they're cats, it's kind of like, okay, I'm never going to tell people not to express themselves, but don't influence children. If you're 18 and older, do whatever the hell you want, as long as it's legal and it's constitutional. I might not agree with them, but I wouldn't be American if I tried to impede their right to express themselves.
And don't make me a participant in your insanity. I'm not going to call you.
It depends on the insanity, JJ.
Yeah, okay.
I've always wanted to go to Burning Man.
Well, I made this about 3 or 4 days ago. I just had a conscious decision where I was like, okay, I'm not playing anymore. I'm just not. I'm not gonna placate anybody anymore, because every time that I would try to do so, it just goes against my nature, and it's wrong. I'm going to show people respect, kindness, and compassion, but I'm not playing. I'm not. You're a man with a hairy chest with a dress on. I'm not addressing you as ma'am. I'm not. I'm not. You tell me your name's Cheryl, then I'll call you Cheryl. I don't care. You make up whatever name you want. That's fine. But I don't have to participate in the insanity. I don't. There's no, you have the right to do what you want within the law. I have a right. Why is your right supersedes mine? I mean, that's a fair question. It's like homeless people
Totally
sleeping on
fair
the streets
question.
and destroying our cities. Wait a minute. Where does your right to sleep on a sidewalk overstep my right to walk down that sidewalk? I mean, it's an honest question. It's a real question to ask, but no one has the courage to just say the truth.
I would say no one, not enough people.
A vast majority. Well, how did we get here, Brian? How did we get to a point where teachers are talking to our young kids about sex as they teach math? How is it?
Oh, no, I agree with you. But what I'm saying is,
because the vast majority of us kept our mouth shut.
but I say it doesn't matter how we got here. It matters what you do now. And I've got it. And I know you agree with that. And you're doing the right thing, because I love the fact that you spend so much time with your son, and I love spending time with my son and my adult daughter. Because and they don't actually. My son, he wants to hear it. Uh, yeah, I'll tell the story in a second at the end of the podcast if anyone wants to hear about Ukraine and my son. But the thing is, like, we're spending time with our kids. Our kids are little fortresses. No one can get at them. Not because we're standing there with a gun, because we've armed their minds.
Yep.
And we haven't armed their minds with our opinions. We've armed their minds with critical thinking.
Yes.
And my son doesn't always agree with me. Actually, it's getting to the point where, like, I actually have to catch up on my history, because he's getting smarter than me in history. And he's like, "Well, Dad, that didn't actually happen that way." And I'm like, "Shit." But, and then even my daughter, she doesn't want to hear it. She kind of jokes at me. She's like, "Hey, Dad, oh, I'm sure those are communist Chinese spies over there." And she lives in Brooklyn. So I said, "Well, why don't we go ask them?" She's like, "No, I don't want to." Nah, let's go ask them. And I talk to these people for a while. I get their business card. Well, turns out there's 3 members of the Chinese Communist Party on their board. So, and she's gained respect. But the reason, and what I really appreciated about you, JJ, is you're consistent as a parent. And that's the thing. As parents, we have to be rocks, because we're the lighthouses that kids, they might get lost, and they're going to get lost. We all got lost. But as long as you keep that lighthouse lit and they know where to find you, they'll always come back.
Yeah, I agree. And my greatest job and responsibility is being my son's father. That's it. And I talk to my son one way that we are able. I don't know how you do it, Brian, but one way that I do it is on the car, we'll listen to podcasts. It could be about business wars, or which is Wondery podcast, which is amazing podcast.
I love that podcast.
I love it.
I love that
I love
podcast.
it.
That's a good one.
It'll take my son and I probably 4 hours of driving to get through a 30-minute podcast.
And he likes it.
Yeah. Oh, he loves it. And he stops.
Our son's got to meet, because I'm trying to get my son on podcasts.
Well, it's because business wars could be Coke and Pepsi, Honda versus Toyota, whatever. But they talk a lot about integrity, and they talk about businesses, and it's amazing just to be able to say, well, he'll stop and go, "Yeah, Dad, I don't know," and we'll just talk about it. I don't have to browbeat him. I can just say, "Well, what do you think about? What does integrity mean?" But it's an amazing way for he and I to have these conversations. But I always come back to it as, son, you have to understand what you believe in. You're a Christian. You have to be able to explain why you believe in Jesus and God. You're a conservative. And a constitutionalist. You have to be able to articulate why, and that's critical thinking, because son, you're going to be attacked. You're going to be attacked for your beliefs. You're a bigot. They're going to call you all these names, and you have to know what you're grounded in is truth and faith. Not that you're right all the time, but you're grounded with a strong foundation. And I believe that is what's missing in the world today, in particular America. I think two things are missing in America that has profound impact: is the absolute lack of the father and the mocking of fatherhood in TV, media, movies. And the second thing is,
right? Yes.
I mean, that's a whole, I would love to do a whole podcast.
Naomi has pointed this out so much. I never noticed it. Sorry, go ahead.
No. Okay. Every man that just go look.
It's true.
Every sitcom that you see, the man is overweight. He doesn't know how to put his clothes on and match them. He's a bumbling fool in front of his kids. His wife is super hot, and she just demeans him in every sitcom. Not some, every. Go look at it. And it's fatherhood without a father in a family. And I'm not talking about one-offs, right? There's always
no, you're
mother, right? But God created a man and a woman to get married.
What was the Raymond show? Everybody Loves Raymond.
What about
Family Guy?
What about the other one with the real
Family Guy? And I love Family Guy, but you're right.
But when kids are watching it and they're seeing the
I don't let my
dad,
kids. I don't let my kid watch.
I'm not
Family
letting my
Guy.
kids watch that. But my point is, fatherhood and the lack of father has destroyed our country. Inner cities destroyed. But now
think,
it's in
think about it. It's like Marxists they don't believe in God. They don't believe in, they believe in themselves, their leaders as gods. And so you have to remove the competition. So you get rid of churches, you get rid of business leaders, you get rid of entrepreneurs, because these are, mini leaders. These are big leaders. These are, celestial leaders. And everything has to be, and it's, now that I'm thinking about it, it's so archaic of a thought, because, I thought we'd move past the geocentric view of the earth or of God a long time ago. And so, remember, Galileo was almost beheaded because he said, we actually rotate around the sun. And yes, I'm sure some academic will say, well, it wasn't actually that, blah, blah, blah. But that's a general idea. Yep. And by making that discovery, he was taking power away from the church. And the church is important, but not every church is pure. And so going back to the Marxists, and the reason I say not every church is pure, and I'll say this as a Catholic, because I am done with our current Pope. I'm done with this guy because he is so captured. He's such a Marxist.
I'm with you. Stop telling me about climate change and social engineering and open borders. Why don't you?
Oh no, it's worse. It's worse. He's trying to Sorry, Jay. I'm gonna barrel through this. He's trying to fundamentally change the Catholic Church to be a bunch of small groups and collectives. What's that sound like to you?
Yeah.
No chain of command, no priest, no nothing. Little collectives.
Nothing. Look, there's a reason why pews are empty across America. Let me tell you why. Because humans instinctively know when they hear truth. And they equally understand when they hear lies. And when they go and sit in the pews and they hear the crap coming out of the priest's mouth, and they understand, okay, that doesn't make sense. That's not true. Then they leave, because why are you going to come sit on Sunday and listen to a lie? You either believe what's in the Bible or you don't. You can't come in and pick the parts of the Bible that you want to believe in, and you don't want the other stuff.
Right.
You can't be a cafeteria. We call it a cafeteria Catholic. You just can't go down the line and
pick what you like that cafeteria Catholic. That's good. Hey, JJ, I'm going to have you read the comments because there's a lot of comments. It's your turn to read them. And
I
so
see Elise
start with
57.
I would start with go start at Rebel News, work your way down.
Rebel News.
Sorry to put you on the spot like that, but
Yeah. So Cynthia's. Well, I like to just. Cynthia says men can be great models for our sons, righteous dads. We love strong dads. Uh, I want to say Elise 57 says I completely disagree with the rights of free speech that are being taken from us. Smiling at a mom whose daughter wants to be a son. I don't really understand that. But Cynthia says the vaccines since 1983 have accelerated the hormone disruption in our children combined with food additives, etc. They get lost. They get lost. So sorry. Clean diet, no junk like bread. Here's something I'd like to talk about just for a second because your wife is so into vaccinations.
keep going on the comments just so
Keep
they're going to
going.
stack up on us, man.
All right.
We got to be disciplined. These
Fathers
people
can be
they took the time
grandparents,
to be
uncles,
with
and
us. So.
friends. I agree with that, but I'm talking about the totality of the world's, in particular America, with the lack of the father. There is something special that a son has or a daughter has with his father. It's powerful. God created it that way. You can't remove something God created and think everything's going to be okay. It's just not. It's just not.
And this is amazing too, like the mother relationship as well. Like when I see the like I've got to say, like, so I have 2 kids, 2 different moms. I'm on my 3rd marriage, which is great. But I'm such good friends with, you know, the mothers of my children because they're great mothers and they guide them. But go ahead.
No, but I was just saying that you look at, okay, I'll just keep going down. Cynthia says, yep, fry the grid, go back to nature. She follows up with the COVID jab and then trying to disable all AI as much as you can on phones, notifications, etc. And I agree with that, but I would like to go back on something that is starting to really come to the forefront, and I'm taking more knowledge or course of action to get more education on the topic. Is
Wait, JJ, I got one more comment. I'm really sorry. Elise says, I am a single mom and my son is doing great. By me and with the help of my family, he is 22 and completed university. Let me address that really quickly, if you don't mind.
okay? Yeah, go ahead.
And then we're going to go right to you. Don't worry. Totally agree with you, Elise. And I've seen this. There's so many good single moms. Actually, I've never met too many bad single moms. And think about what they're up against. They got to be mom and dad. And this might sound contradictory, but I've been a single dad. Okay. And I've been a single dad while I was married. So my first wife was went to war in Sarajevo, and I had to hold back where I was going because the army, God bless them, I hope they still have this. They have a program called the Married Couples Program, where they will not send a wife and a husband, or they did not send to war at the same time. In case they both get killed, they didn't want to create orphans. I keep referring to didn't because I don't know the current programs. But I will say, I had to be a mom and a dad. I had a daughter and a little 2-year-old, and I'll never forget. Like, I didn't know what to do. Like, I got this little dumpling here, and I had to take her to a birthday party, and her hair was a mess. She was clean, obviously, but I'd comb her hair, she'd start crying, so I'd stop. So I just put it all in like 15 ponytails, and she looked like a crazy version of Cindy Lou Who. And so finally, I called my mom. God bless her. I called my mom. Who my dad was always present, but my dad worked 363 days a year. And my mom had to deal with 7 boys and 2 girls. Yes, we're an Irish Catholic family. But my mom did great. So I called my mom and I was like, Mom, I hate asking for help, but I need help. She flew right in, and I learned a lot from her. So, Elise, the point is, and again, this sounds contradictory. You don't have to be a man to be a good role model. You don't have to be a woman to be a good role model. You have to be a parent to be a good role model. Anyone can have a kid, but not everyone can be a parent. And it sounds like you're a great parent, and I just want you to know that. And we do hear you. Go ahead, JJ.
No, like I said, I know understand there's one-offs, but when you look at all the data, all the studies that have been done of fatherless homes, I'm not talking about men that have divorce, but those men that are divorced are still in their sons and daughters' lives, right? I'm talking about just the complete absence of a father, the dad just leaving their kids. I just don't understand that as a dad.
No.
I just don't. It does not register with me, and we're seeing the societal problems with that. And I think the other part that's destroying America is there's no civility. People aren't kind anymore. People don't hold doors or say thank you. It just simple kindness can go such a long way. You don't have to agree with the person. I don't care if the person is whatever holding the door for me. I'm going to turn and say thank you very much. I don't care if that person hates Donald Trump and hates Republicans and thinks my podcast sucks, as long as they're holding the door. And how much does it hurt me to say thank you? I mean, you know how many doors I hold and people just walk in and don't even, I'm like, why are you so uncivil? But that's the world we live in. And I think it's a combination of social media, phones, devices, lack of a cohesive family. It's all there. It all plays in it, and it plays to the bigger picture. It just does. And Americans are hurting financially. So I can't imagine a single. I mean, I'm tired at the end of the day, but I have my wife helps me. Can you imagine? I mean, you can. You did it. That would be exhausting, right?
Oh, it's exhausting. Yeah, it's exhausting, but it's worth it. I did a
No.
Substack on this, and I'll send it to you. I hope you'll read it. I'll put it up. Um, I look at all parents, and at some point we're all single parents. You're with your son all day. Your wife might have to work. She might be
Yeah.
with him. And but the thing is, it's like what I said in the Substack was this: like I was overwhelmed. I was an active duty soldier. It's like 1999, and I was so overwhelmed and stressed. And of course, I love my daughter, but at the same time, I'm like, oh God, I just wish I had more time. Kind of like that show
Yeah.
Multiplicity, that movie with Michael Keaton, great movie. But I'll never forget this one soldier we're the same rank. His name was Solis, and he says to me, he's like, "You're doing it wrong." And I said, "What do you know?" And he's like, "Well, I got 5 kids." And I'm like, "Man, you're pretty young for 5 kids." And he goes, "You're trying to make your daughter, some sort of side project." And he said, "I make my kids my main project." And he
Yep.
said, "I've never been happier since." So I tried that, and he was right.
Yep.
And because that's all that matters, is bringing up the next generation, like you said. And you said it earlier. You said the most important role that your life is being a father, and I couldn't agree with you more. People need to become selfless. I'm not telling people what they need to do. Everyone's got to figure out what they need to do for themselves. But what I'm saying is, if speaking from experience, I was never as happy as I am now, because this is the point in my life where I've never been so selfless, not just with kids, but with adults, where like I actually care about other people more than I care about myself. And as a result, people care about me more. And
Mhm.
I just want to say this. You talked about the opening doors and holding doors. Young men of America, flood to New York and hold doors for women in the West Village, and you will have as many dates as you want. Because every time I held the door in New York, and I was with Naomi, we were dating at the time, and women just loved it. They smiled. They're like, "Oh my god, this is so amazing." And of course, the dude in the man bun, as you like to say, with the knit cap, he kind of look at me, and I'm like, "No, dude." And I'd hand him the door, and he didn't realize what I was doing. And I tell my son all the time, I'm sure you tell yours, like, brother, like, you guys have it so easy. All you have to do is be a gentleman, be smart, and show up on time. You can rule the world.
Rule the world, not just be successful, rule the world.
Yep.
Because you have people that don't even understand what sex they are. And our sons and kids like ours are going to be critical thinkers. They're going to know exactly who they are and what they want to become and why they're put on earth. And they're going to go forward, and they're going to be unabashedly, unapologetically American, Christian, and believe in the values. That's power, Brian. Power. Whereas you take somebody that has no idea who they are. They don't even know if they're a human. They think they're a dog. My son is going to rule my son's going to rule you. You're going to work for him, and my son's going to tell you how long you're going to work and for how much.
All right, I'm going to take comments, and I totally agree with you. I'm going to take some comments. Cynthia says harm is evil. Well, it depends on the harm. Cynthia, I agree with you, and I like everything you've said, but like, if I'm causing harm to a bad guy, I don't think it's evil. I think it's necessary. I think it's like raid on a hornet. But I agree with you. Public law do no harm, of course. And Cynthia, you bring up a good point. Public law do no harm. And JJ brought this. JJ brought this up the other day. And I've talked about it. We should just write a book called Follow the Rules. Because if people just enforce the laws and do what they're supposed to do, the world's a better place. So, Cynthia, that is great comments. The roads are 5 times busier today. This is Cynthia Klippel again, because of the influx, and I am in the Boston area. I agree with you totally. Boston's a mess. I actually have a home in Salem, Massachusetts. Yes, Antifa, please come and bomb me, and I will, show you what war is all about. That aside, tough guy statement aside, Boston, the traffic's always been terrible. I've never seen it so terrible. And on top of it, Boston has this local thing that drives me crazy, where like they have a lot of blinking red lights and blinking yellow lights. Like, what the hell does that mean? And I talked to, I'm serious. Have you driven in Boston, JJ?
I haven't been in Boston in years and years, but
it's freaking horrible. It's like, I asked my ex-wife, I'm like, what does that mean? What do I do? She goes, well, you just nose out slowly. I'm like, I'm not nosing out slowly. These people are you insane? And it works for her, but I'm like, kind of like, ugh. But she's right. Cynthia's right. It's been way busier. And Cynthia, to your point, they just moved 400 Haitians into Salem State University like 6 months ago, which is pretty close to my home. And, it's kind of like, I've seen so many accidents. I've seen it's terrible. And I'm not even going to hedge this by saying, oh, this immigrant is good and that one. No, they need to just shut the border and figure it all out and, put a pause on everything. And I'm sorry to say, they even need to put a pause on legal immigration for this for now, until they get it all.
No idea what's going on. Yep.
Until they get it all under control. Let me see. Elise and JJ, I'm going to give you the mic right back. Kindness is necessary, changes a person's day for the better. Absolutely. Yet people are hostile of late. After COVID, people emerged with a lot of anger. Elise, I've talked about this, and JJ, jump in on this one too. We've talked about this a lot at home. And I started thinking back to the time of AIDS. Okay. And I'll never forget like how many people wouldn't go to the doctor because they didn't want to find out. And then when AIDS would come up, this back in the 80s, JJ.
Yep.
AIDS would come up and people get mad. They get hostile. I think what's happening now is people aren't mad about COVID. They're mad about getting the vaccine. I'll just say it. I don't care if this gets censored. It's obvious.
We're all tired of being lied to by our government.
And I think people who have this thing in them, and God bless you and Godspeed to those who do. Unfortunately, I have some family members that do. But can you imagine what it's like to have something growing inside of you that might kill you? And there's going to be anger. And I say you got two options with those people. And at least I know you know this. You avoid those people, or you just don't comment. You don't try to change their mind. You let them vent it all out. They've got to get it out. If they're mad, but they're not hostile physically, they probably need an audience, and they probably can't get one, because I can tell you, having a lot of friends from the West Village and Brooklyn and everything, and there's angry people, but they're terrified, and sometimes terror and fear presents as anger, and it's a mask. And so you've got to evaluate. So I recommend standing 6 feet back when you're talking to them, being vigilant, but if they don't make an aggressive move towards you, keep listening. They might get it out, and then once they get it all out, then they're ready to receive. If they attack you, just put them down and get out of there, and don't be left there holding the smoking gun. Let me see, JJ, what else? Any other comments here you want to address?
No, I'm good. I just think you talk about your children, Elise, and sin. I think being a parent is the most important thing in our lives, and if we produce good children that turn into good human beings, then that's it. I want my son to be incredibly successful and have great things in life. But the thing that I want him to be recognized as a kind and compassionate man that's strong in his faith.
Yeah.
That's everything else is just secondary to me. But if he could just be known as a good person, I think that's a big deal. And it's just
how's
a
he doing
crazy
with
time.
that?
He's great.
How's he doing with that?
My son is just he is nice, and he is kind, and he doesn't make fun of people. And that's what we talk about, respect and kindness constantly, about how important it is to be, because you're kind and have compassion does not equate that you're weak. In fact, it makes you even stronger, because sometimes it's very hard to be kind and compassionate when people are being very mean to you. And some people take that as a sign of weakness, and it is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. So
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
And again, like my son, the same thing. Like, I only care that he's a good kid and he's kind.
Yep.
And as a parent, like, I got to give a lot of props to Naomi Wolf, my wife. She really instilled some manners in him. Like, I mean, like old school manners. Of course I did, but like, forcing him to address the shopkeeper and everything like that. And
Yeah.
how was your day? And, oh, my day's fine. And things I wouldn't have thought about. Not that I don't think they're important, but like, you're in a rush. You want to get your Gatorade Zero or whatever it is. And he just loves it. And he now, and what's cool about it is, like, somehow we've made it cool. And it sounds like you have too, where he comes home, he's like, yeah, so there's this kid and everyone makes fun of him. And I punched a kid out because he was making fun of him. I'm like, okay, well, we'll deal with that. Maybe not go to 0 to 50 right away. But if you felt you were in danger, you're not in trouble. But what I like about him is that he's thoughtful. He's listening. I'm forcing him to listen. And he's actually taught me, because when I see him being so well-mannered, sometimes we're off our game and we forget to be well-mannered. And we're creating a strong bond with these kids who are like, okay, they're like, Dad, you didn't listen to what that guy said. And I'm like, shh, he's right. And I'll go back and listen. And so that's why our sons, they got to get like, something going on, because have you noticed, like, and plus your son is like X Games and football. My son is football and soccer in the same season. I don't even know how he does it. And, and
Yeah.
he's like, got all of the kids. So they're they've become the cool kids because they're doing the cool stuff. And by the cool stuff, I mean the stuff that is organically, their instincts are telling them to pursue. Contact sports, dangerous sports. These little guys got to get that out, and they've got to get that out. They got to vent it, otherwise it manifests as like a post office shooting or an Antifa riot. And
I think boys need to be, especially boys, the education system's flawed. It's not geared toward boys. Boys need physicality. They can't sit in the classroom for 8 hours. They need to be out running and jumping and climbing and very physical. So
they do. And they do. And I'll even say about my daughter, like, she was so fortunate to grow up in a ranching community. And she, at a very early age, was like, hunting rabbits with me out in, the eastern side of the Sierras. And for her, it's like she didn't need to be physical as much as she needed to be confident that she could survive in austere environments. And be a protector, be a someone who creates a home or a cave or whatever, where she could take care of everything within her sphere. And that manifests in the career she has and her success. And what I find is that the little guys, they look to the stronger women and the stronger men for guidance. The stronger women show them how to, do things that we never thought of. And then, the stronger men teach them to do things that the rest of society is telling them are bad. And they're not bad, because it comes down to one thing, and that's protecting your home, protecting your tribe, and protecting your civilization. So, and so, JJ, there were a couple other things I wanted to go over with you. First of all, we talked about the border. Any new news about the Chinese, the fighting age men crossing the border?
It's amazing when you watch the media. They go through this wave of intense reporting because they have to, and then it goes radio silent. What I'm seeing is, and what I'm hearing from, and I follow an investigative reporter named Michael Yan. He goes down to the Darien Gap, and he's saying that the Chinese nationals are pouring in through the Darien Gap, just pouring in, and they have a special pathway. The idea prior, several months ago, I was an outlier when I was saying, hey, we got a terrorist problem. We have a special interest issue. We have enemy within our borders. We have a million, criminal aliens in our nation. And people would literally scoff at me and say, that's really racist. And I'm like, number one, I don't know how any of that's racist. Number two, this is happening. Now it has become mainstream talk. The only issue that people want to have an argument about is how many. And before, which was very interesting, now I'm hearing tens of thousands is now the new norm that is agreed upon on how many terrorists and special interests are in our country. Tens of thousands. That's what everyone has agreed upon. So can you imagine what the true number is, Brian? Hundreds of thousands. And we are going, I could be wrong, and I hope that I am, but there's many, many people like myself that have their thumb on the pulse of this and understand and see the data and live that data. Know that it's not an if, it's a when question.
And you said something very important earlier. Well, I could hear the skateboards in the background, and we related tales of being terrified when we got on the half pipe, like Will Ferrell in Daddy's Home. But it can't. No one's as stupid. Like no one's as stupid. Devaluing the dollar, pissing off all of our allies, isolating ourselves. We're being, our country's being handed to the dragon, and
Yep.
plain and simple. So,
And you say the dragon is China, right?
absolutely.
And so I've heard you say this to me before. But maybe let's talk about this for a few minutes. Is the 4-war strategy of China?
Sure.
I'd
So
love
the
to get
four,
into that.
yeah, you got it. So when I saw this happen, when I saw this shocking news come out of Israel, the first thing I did was feel anger and rage like everyone else did, and sadness and fear for the people we know and love. But then I put that aside, and I started pulling up my old research. And I research and I save, I research, I save, and then I analyze. And the Palestinian Authority met with Xi Jinping like 3 times since June, and I was like, well, there it is. And then I realized that Iran funds Hamas to $100 million a year. Okay.
Yep.
And let's not forget that we just sent $6 billion to Iran not too long ago for some hostages of hostages that are not, national security threats.
Right.
If they stay, Godspeed that they get home to their families. But, and I was like, okay, so and this was reported by the Epic Times with Josh J. Phillip, he's an amazing analyst of China. This guy, if you don't know who he is, Epic Times, Josh J. Phillip. I reached out to him from the beginning of the pandemic. They had a documentary like laying it all out way earlier than anyone. But this guy knows China, but bigger, he knows communism. He knows the history of communism. And he reported on this 4-war strategy, and I'd read about it. But there was a general or a official that came to Xi Jinping, and I'll post the article that he wrote, which summarizes it better, about how to achieve the next step in the goal towards the China dream of 2049. China needs to get the United States into 4 wars.
Okay.
A kinetic war, a war on terror, a war within their own borders, and Taiwan.
So Taiwan is any day now. Would you say?
Can't, at this point, it cannot. Well, maybe it can be, but based on the conditions of the South China Sea weather-wise, it shouldn't be till the spring. But it was Brandon Weichart, who I had on Mostly Peaceful the Day edition. He wrote a great book called Biohacked, and I recommend it to everyone. But the guy knows, the guy's a genius. But he talked about these hydrofoils or these hovercraft that the Chinese have been deploying that can apparently make it through a lot of bad weather. And I may be misquoting him. And my son, who I taught how to use Google Earth, and he knows all about China, he found a few of these in the Spratly Islands, where their Chinese are making islands. They're making islands. They're making military bases. It's kind of like having a aircraft carrier that's rooted to the earth. And yeah, you could go to Google Earth and do they got the little clock that you could look at the earlier images. Watch these islands grow. It's terrifying. And so, anyways, the 4-war strategy. So they need a kinetic war. Ukraine, Russia. Now, we're not directly involved for the most part. We do have contractors and some special forces there. But we're there by proxy. We've sent so many munitions there. It's actually put us at risk.
Yes.
They need a war on terror. We had one. That was Afghanistan. That drew down. That's another story. I covered that, but that drew down because we wanted it to. Now China owns all those mineral deposits, and they're escorted by a heavily armed Taliban who is actually working with the uniformed Pakistani military. They were doing that before August 15, 2021. Go to my Twitter. And So then, so there's your war on terror would be Israel, Hamas, and you see the ranting and the raving about this. We got to go to war. We got to go to war. And by the way, sidebar, when the New York Times, Republicans, rhinos, when all these people are speaking with one voice, beware.
Yes.
That is the uniparty voice. That is not a sovereign voice. That is not an American voice. That's a uniparty voice. When Republicans are not being bashed by the New York Times, the Washington Compost, these type of publications, beware. And right away, I noticed like they're speaking with one voice. That's something everyone should be aware of. So there's your war on terror. Now we have people flooding into this country. Would you say 19,000 plus, if not more at this point?
I say between 11 and 14,000 a day, and then probably another 7 to 10,000 getaways a day. So we're well over 20.
And these are the special interest aliens.
No, these are just the average number a day. So special interest aliens, you had in 2022, you had 25,000. In 2023, which just ended in end of September, you had over 80,000. That's a big jump, Brian. 25,000 to 80,000. And they say the numbers already are spiking out of control right now. You had 8,000.
You have a war with the fifth column of chaos occurring in this country. There's your third. Okay. And what's number 4? Taiwan. So Taiwan is ripe for, and they have to invade it. That's what a lot of people don't realize. Like they can't just bomb it, because if they just bomb it, then there goes your semiconductor production. However, they're replicating that production. You're going to like this one, in Afghanistan as we speak.
Of course.
They have plenty of neon because that came from Ukraine, which used to be the largest producer of Ukraine gas before this mysterious war happened, even though Ukraine, Russia, and China were all working together on a pipeline, but that's another story. So, yeah, those are your 4 wars. So that's why you can expect something, and it's not going to be, one thing, 2 things. You may not even notice it. That's why I want to stress to people. Maybe the poisoning of the water supply. It may be the poisoning of the food supply. It may be a new outbreak. But whatever it is, it's going to hit this country. It's going to hit this country big. And it has to hit before the 2024 elections, because if someone like Trump gets in,
it's over with.
It's over with for them, because they cannot control him. And so you can expect that that's the 4-war strategy. And so what's new in China, I just want to say this one last thing. There's a Belt and Road conference coming up in like next week. And guess who's all there? Russia, most of the Middle East. Like, this is where we are encircled at this point. And anyone who is busy, ranting and raving about being a cat, or saying, oh, Palestinians are great and Hamas is great. These are distractions. They're all distractions. And JJ, you said something really interesting. We're going to wrap it up here soon, but you said something interesting too. And I didn't even know this. So we sent $6 billion to Iran, right?
To Iran.
And what did you tell me today?
Then right on Saturday, Israel was bombed. Was that 10 days ago? On Sunday, we started seeing, or I started reading, hey, we're sending $6 billion to Israel. And I was like, God dang, man. We can't keep sending money to everybody. And then all of a sudden that was scrubbed. And then I saw an interview where like, no, that was misinformation. We're not sending them any money. And you're like, wait a minute. What's the truth? And Renetta, I think it's Renetti Irwin said that in her thing. It's hard to know what the truth is. And that is the greatest battle that the leftist, anti-American people inside and outside of our country have been able to do, is nobody believes anything. Let me give you an example. Today came out, we are sending 2,000 troops to Israel. The Pentagon is asked the question and they won't confirm or deny it. What is it? You cannot continue to lie to America. Look, you don't have to believe the elections are stolen or not. You don't have to believe COVID is true or not. But what you need to understand is that Americans trust no one. I don't trust anybody. The greatest law enforcement organization, the FBI, is completely being abused. Nobody believes the FBI. You've destroyed everything in America that we once valued has been destroyed. Our great leaders, our founding fathers, their statues are torn down. We've segmented our country by race and ethnicity. We've never been like that. We're Americans. But the Miss Irwin put it on, she hit it right. And it's something I believe wholeheartedly.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody has an idea what the truth is. And that's not good at all. Are we sending money to Israel? Are we sending soldiers now? Are going to fight in Israel? Lindsey Graham has called for the bombing of 4 or 5 sites in Iran. Are you insane, Lindsey Graham?
He's an idiot.
Lindsey Graham, you're not married. You don't have any kids.
No,
why is it always people that have no kids are all about sending kids to go fight wars and get blown up and die? Isn't that amazing? Don't you find that fascinating, Brian? That people with
I don't find it fascinating. I find it par for the course. Like, I find it like there's so many people, and we probably should wrap it up soon, but like there's so many people that are, you go to Twitter, for instance, okay, and Naomi, she, unbeknownst to me, was videotaping me like messing around with my shotgun. I'm not trained in shotgun. I was in the Army, not the police. We don't train in shotgun. So
you didn't.
And all these people start saying, "Oh, he needs more training, and he needs more of this, he needs more of that." I'm like, you probably, if I need a shotgun, but it's a damn shotgun, so like I just have to point it in the general direction. Well, look, you're in law enforcement. How's shotgun work?
You point and you shoot,
and it's going to cover a pretty wide breadth, right?
Yes. And once they hear that racking noise, it's the universal sound of, oh my God, I'm about to die. And I think it's one of the most powerful weapons visually.
Honestly, I hate it. It's so painful. I almost dropped it.
Come on, Brian.
Dude, I never shoot that thing. I never shoot. My hands are cold. Admittedly,
your hands
I'm America's nightmare. I had a bourbon.
Oh God, your hands are cold and that shotgun flew out of your hand. So it was a YouTube moment that we all never want to be on, right?
Well, I'm on it. So
okay.
But it was interesting.
On your hands.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, actually, I'm going to get a new stock, and the reason I was holding it, and I like holding it down here because it doesn't pound into your shoulder. I've shot some skeet, but like, I'm an AR-15 guy and a Glock guy. That's what I shoot. But it was fun. And actually, what I was trying to do is I had an old vanity mirror because she's throwing all this stuff away, and she threw it in the dumpster that we rented, and I pulled it out, and I had this fortress of destruction set up. And I just wanted to blast away at it. And, but, I'm reading these comments and, I don't get upset or anything. I did something I normally don't do and I responded, but I was being humorous. Like some guy said I had a pot belly. I could lose a few pounds. But, so I responded with the fat bastard get in my belly gif, those kind of things. But yeah, I couldn't resist. But so those kind of things. But what I did notice is like the people that tried to be serious, they're like too close to the target, too many innocent bystanders. JJ, if you're racking a gun for shotgun for home defense, and you're thinking about innocent bystanders, what are your thoughts on that?
Look, no, you just pull that. You put that barrel down range and you fire, and you take care of your family. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's one of the best home guns to have. Literally, if you're upstairs and you just rack it, the bad guy hears that, they're out. Nobody
And if they're
wants to
not
get
out,
hit
they're on
by a slug.
PCP, so you better shoot them.
Yes, and that slug better hit them right in their chest. You know,
Well,
it's
I was using turkey shot, and that's a terrifying round. Those are big holes, man.
oh, get a slug. You got to shoot slug.
I got slugs. I'm saving them though. You know,
You're
I'm
saving
for a
them for
rainy
the
day.
end times.
Yeah, I mean, look, those cardboard boxes were very, very scary. Actually, one guy's like, you know, like too many innocent bystanders, and I resisted the urge, but what I wanted to reply, because I never respond to that stuff, but I was just honestly quite tired from that retreat. And I was like, why not? But I wanted to say, well, I'll make sure I send some flowers to all those grieving cardboard families. You know, so, but you know, the point is, like, what if people are thinking that way, then that tells me they've never had a gun pointed at them. And that tells me when this happens, when we get invaded, not if, when, okay, when whatever comes our way. And I think it's going to be, you know, Naomi said something that kind of haunts me, because every time she says something, it tends to come true. She said, what if Israel was just a dress rehearsal for the United States?
They're already here, Brian, so why wouldn't it be? Right?
Exactly.
And you made the great point before we close out. We'll go back to a couple episodes before when you and I were discussing what type of, is it going to be a battalion? Is it, you know, and you were like, no, I don't believe it's going to be that. I believe it's going to be small groups, and small groups that can cause incredible terror. And like you said, and you made a great point, what if 10, 15, 20 soldiers from China went into JFK airport in the middle of the day and just shot and killed 1,000 people, 100 people, and then absconded? America would shut down.
Yep.
It would shut down. One little terrorist attack would shut it down. Could you imagine 10, 20, 100 all at the same time, all across America? Everything in America would close down overnight.
Well,
Everything was shut down.
We saw it with BLM and Antifa.
And those were small, and those people were incompetent, and they had no ability to shoot and kill like an armed forces would.
Yep.
They just wouldn't. The only reason Antifa and BLM were allowed to continue their terror is because America stood down all their law enforcement and allowed them to burn everything. That's the truth. And when military, our enemies look at that and they go, they didn't even fight back. People let them burn their cities down. Yeah, I think we're going to be okay by sending our special forces in there. Just a thought. Just a thought.
Well, on that thought, and it's something everyone should think about. And I would just say this, especially based on what JJ just said. If someone comes to your door in the middle of the night and you don't know who they are, two things. Don't say, who is it? And don't let them in. And if they start busting in, you shoot through the door until they stop moving. Yep. Okay, deal with the consequences later, because, yeah, I mean, try to identify them first so it's not grandpa or grandma. But, you know, the thing is, if you don't recognize the person outside and they start trying to come in, you're not talking your way out of it.
No,
you're not. And so on that note, JJ, this is always a great discussion. JJ, how do people find you?
Just go to jjcarrell.com. I have my book link invaded there to Amazon, and go to my YouTube channel, JJ Carrell, at YouTube, and John James Carroll 14 on Rumble. So,
and JJ, really quickly, you recently did a Naomi Wolf interview. You want to just tell where people can find that?
Yeah, you can find that at dailyclout.io. And I love that interview. It was 30 minutes, real quick. And it was what you just talked about. Was Israel, or is Israel the dress rehearsal for America? And we talk about special interest aliens, the amount, what it's going to look like, and what are the probabilities of an attack. So I really enjoyed that interview with your wife. So you can go on DailyClout and check it out.
Absolutely. And we'll get all these links up, and then you know where to find me, but it's Brian O'Shea SBI, and Brian O'Shea on Getter. And look, I want to thank all of you who listen in and who are taking this seriously. And I'm happy to see like partisanship is dissolving in the face of what I think is going to be a real war. And JJ said it best. It's like, be a parent first and, protect out from the center. These things are overwhelming. Okay. They seem too big. What can I do? But the thing is, you can do something right now, and that's educate, empower, and, equip the people closest to you to take care of themselves. And then from there, you start helping your neighbors. Then you start help the willing neighbors. You start fleshing it out. Because at the end of the day, the war is planned globally. The battle's fought on the ground, and that's where you need to be ready. So on that note, JJ, any parting thoughts?
Nope. Have a great day, great night, and we will see you hopefully on Thursday, right?
Come back Thursday it is. And, we got some I don't want to say their names. Should have another guest. By the way, Lev will get his recent, he was with us last week.
Yeah.
Great guy, 24. I thought JJ and him were going to kill each other. And I was happy to see them come to not only consensus, but would I be fair to say is a bit of a friendship. I mean, he's a really good guy.
I like him. I think he is a critical thinker. I think he challenges people's thoughts.
Yeah,
and he wants to get the truth. And isn't that what we all want? And interesting when you talk to somebody that you don't think you're really going to agree with, it's interesting how much we agree with each other. People that love America and believe in values and morals, we share way more than we have disagreements with. That's
we actually talked after that interview till like 11 o'clock off camera.
Yeah.
And Lev's a good guy. And he actually called me yesterday. I was dead tired. And he's just like, I got this investigation. I'm going to find out all this stuff. I'm like, oh my God, I haven't slept in like 3 days. But I was so excited to see like another, young man digging into the truth. And he's focused on that address. And he's going to get to the bottom of it. And I told him, be careful. And, I'm going to, give him whatever I can to help him. But I like the fact that he's just not taking a headline for an answer. And that's what I hope everyone does. So Lev, if you're out there, be safe. We'll have you back. We want an update. And it was good to have you last week. Everyone check out last episode. I'll post it as well. And JJ, thanks again, man. It's always great to talk to you. I'm glad you had a good weekend. We got to plan a visit soon. Definitely. And I think our kids will like each other or hate each other. I think they like each other.
They'll like each other.
And you can show me how to use that shotgun properly. But
I'll show you how the man shoots it. All right.
Oh. And I will teach you a thing or two about marksmanship. But at the same time, JJ, be safe, be strong.
You too, Brian. Thank you.
And I will talk to you soon, brother.
All right, man. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
All right. Have a good night. Thanks again. All right. Bye-bye.